I'm sure you guys have experienced this, where like there's probably something you do that you set up like many times in a row. Like every time you open Ableton or Logic or FL or whatever. Those are the things that we look to presets and templates for, of course, right? We want to save time on that. And we don't want to have to think about it. We don't want to have to like necessarily search for sounds or search for just like menu dive when an idea has come about. This is my template in Ableton. This is when I load up Ableton, this shows up. If you're not aware of how to do this in Ableton, it's very easy. In Live 11, especially, you can go File, Save Live Set as Template. And what that does is it opens up in your user library, there's a templates folder. And these are all the different like templates that I've had over the years. I'm just gonna hit escape, but you can save it as something, right? And then if you want this to be your default template, you can right click on something else that isn't my default and just say like set default live set. And in doing so, that's gonna be what opens up every time you open Ableton. And when you hit save, it's not gonna save it as a project, it's gonna save, or it's not gonna save over what you already have, it's gonna save it, it's gonna prompt you to save as, is what I'm saying. So it's basically just the starting point and you can put whatever you want into it. I don't know if you're at your computer right now and have the ability to like do this along with me, but also for anyone who is watching, I like recommend having your DAW open just because it's like good to get the fucking muscle memory of just doing any of this stuff anyway, so that you know, rather than just watching me do it and be like, huh, and then, you know, fuck that. You know, so hopefully we can walk through this together, just like make some quick changes. If you go drum rack versus synth next, right, and you do that every time, or more or less every time, that sounds like a great candidate to set up in your template, right? So deciding on sounds to start with just can be based on like, okay, I normally load up this synth and like these are my favorite samples, or like these generally work. So what you can do is just create, like, for example, create a drum rack, and I can say like, okay, I have my like little categories up here in Ableton. This is one way of organizing samples. Like, here's a kick I like, so let me drag that into there. Here's like another kick from a different collection. Here's some snares, I'll throw in a clap there. Here's a snare, great. And I can just say like, okay, I wanna at least start with these sounds. I might not use them, but having these here and then saving this as my template, right? Save live set as template, like stream test template. Beautiful. Awesome. That's crazy. Now every time I open Ableton, I can just load this up and this drum rack is going to be ready to go. If I turned on my controller here, it would also be linked up and I could immediately just start playing. No thought required. Here's my thought process with my template. I have a lot of live, like things that I record live here. I have a synth, I have an SP404 that also another synth is running into. So this is a stereo pair, that's a stereo pair. I have one mic, a mic on the hats, a mic on the snare. I have 2 room mics, so that's 5 mics total. I have an instrument input for like bass or guitar if I want to go DI. I have 10 inputs. I'm maxing out those inputs. I'm using all 10 of them, pretty much hardwired in my studio. I know which inputs they are, awesome. So my template is set up so that if I have an idea in my head before I've even like turned on my computer, I can keep that idea going like in my head and maybe play it on one of my synths or something as like everything's loading up. And my template is ready to go with the main things that I use like every time already record enabled. So like the SP404, I know if I'm sitting down at my DX7, all I have to do, that's already record enabled. I literally press R, which is my hotkey for record. I just press R and I'm going. So there is absolutely no time. And I can be indiscriminate about like, I'm recording multiple things at a time. So no matter what I sit down with, if I have an idea bouncing around my head and I want to just get it down, I know I can just open up, press R, and like whatever I normally reach for will be recording. So that's what I want to be able to do with my template. I want to have everything available to me off the jump, idea capture if I need to. Here's another cool thing about Ableton, switching gears a little bit. So if I'm in a session that like somebody else sent me, somebody else started, or I started before I like had this template, right? Without the live drums. What's really cool is I can go, if I'm like, all right, time to record drums on this track that like is from a different project from a different time. I want to get my drum sounds in here. Ableton is a really interesting way of doing that. If you've saved something in your templates, you can go to user library, templates, open up, for me, it's Decatur number 3i. That's just the name of my template right now. And I can just click live drums and bring it in. And this whole group is now available. It's ready to go. Now it's here. I've got like, it works. It's boom, select, that's all there. So anytime I want to record drums in a project that doesn't have that, I have this saved in my template, and Ableton lets you actually like open the template as a dropdown and then drag that into your session. If I go to another place, one of the first things I do, especially if I'm going to be there for a little while, like when I was out in LA studio, I made a template like day one. Like when I went to the Netherlands we had this beat retreat with Chill Hop. I had a template for each of the studios in there because it takes like 5 minutes to set up, and it's just like, all right, cool, we're rolling. Like we don't need to think about this every time. This is an interesting thing. I've got these 3 plugins on my drum bus. This is how it sounds. I'll play it for you. In order, left to right. This is what we got going on. So great, it sounds pretty decent. It's lo-fi enough. It's fine. It's not my favorite sound in the world, but you know what? I dialed it in quickly, and if I want to ever use it again, I can go to this drum bus track that it's on, drum group rather. I can highlight one of the plugins, select all 3 of them, and then hit on Mac Command G or Control G, I think if you're on Windows, and that groups them all as an instrument rack. And then what you can do is you can hit this little floppy disk guy here, and that'll open up like save it. So I could just go like call this drum group 1, and that's going to save it to my presets in Ableton. That's in my user library now. And now I know that anytime I want to get that exact sound, I can just call this drum group on, and it'll apply to the sounds that I've got going on. Another thing I like to do, so I have, these are like MIDI messages. So I have a little like knob bank over here that I can control some parameters that are on my master bus. So I know that when I'm playing with stuff, check this out. This is like basic arrangement stuff that I use for like transitions and stuff. So actually I need to change that to this here. Feel me? And then I know I'm going to use that at some point in a song, perhaps. Like it's great to have that at my fingertips, because I know, for example, if I'm playing a beat, right, and someone behind me is recording piano, and we've just been vibing on something for a while, and I want to just switch it up, I can just reach for one of these knobs and kind of like move. It's like I'm jamming on production. You know what I mean? Like I'm able to throw the musician that I'm working with something that's going to like wake them up and kind of they're going to react to. And having that set up allows me to just be like, oh, sick. Like, yeah, let me throw them something that might like inspire them. You know, I don't know, whatever. It allows you to play with what you have in a way that you're kind of pushing things along with the musician. That's really fun. I love doing that shit. And that's where like if you guys have like a keyboard with MIDI knobs, you can set that up so that on your template, you can MIDI map, and those MIDI mappings stay consistent across your template. And you can have like little subtle effects on your master or on a track or something. And you can always reach for that knob, and it's always going to work. So it can be really fun when you're like jamming with people. Super fun.